be your bank for life. All right, Riley Leonard, Duke, quarterback in the portal. Paul, when you sent this text out, you said this was the worst kept secret in transfer portal this year.
Maybe in history. I mean, they were already talking about it before the season was over, that Riley Leonard to Notre Dame made a ton of sense. And it does. Look, he and Sam Hartman are very similar in skill set. I think he's better than Sam Hartman. He's more athletic than Sam Hartman. He's probably got a stronger arm than Sam Hartman. Tough kid. His injury kind of derailed Duke's plans for their season when he did get hurt against, ironically enough, Notre Dame. Was what kind of set that on the path. But he's going to fit in well there. Not to mention that they have 2 wide receiver transfers that they brought in before Riley Leonard signed on the dotted line with the Irish and put out a pretty neat little video. But Bo Collins from Clemson and Chris Mitchell, who is kind of the better one of the 2 right now from FIU, who led his conference in touchdowns, I want to say. I don't know about yards, but was one of the better receivers there for Florida International. So they've made some big portal additions on offense at Notre Dame, and this is kind of how they're going to, you're going to see people do this. And Riley Leonard available should be able to keep at least Notre Dame on a steady trajectory, if not maybe tick them up a bit, if he can remain healthy this year. Obviously, the style at which he plays, where he runs a lot, puts him a little bit more at risk. But again, like I said before, tough kid and plays through a lot.
Yeah, really good pickup for the Irish, and this seemed to be a foregone conclusion when he entered his name into the portal. But good to see that it's official now and that we can kind of move on with the dominoes, although most figured, had already sort of put him in that Notre Dame spot anyways when it came to the rumor mill and other potential landing spots for other guys in the portal. But it does at least check a box. And so, all right, you pivot and you move on. Who's the next best available? Who still needs guys? But that's a really good get for the Irish, who, maybe you're going to be just one of those teams that year to year they, just go dip into the portal and get one of the best guys available. Worked out pretty well with Hartman, not to the lengths that they would have liked, but we'll see with Leonard. He had a really fantastic season rolling on along until that injury really derailed not only his year, but Duke in some ways. And then, just kind of went downhill from there with Elko leaving, and just what was a party scene was just suddenly like the lights got turned out, the balloons popped. And I mean, it's still cool. Like they're going to, have Manny Diaz roll in there and hopefully pick up the ball and run with it. This was expected. And so good to see that we've got some confirmation now. And because of that, you have Dylan Gabriel, who's widely considered to be, the top portal quarterback, or at least that's what, On3, for example, had him ranked. We know what he's going to be doing now at Oregon. Riley Leonard, the number 2 guy in that particular set of rankings. And I know it may vary, the deeper you go down the list especially. But with those 2 now off the board, Gabriel to Oregon and Leonard to Notre Dame, you're next up, Will Howard. You're next up, Cam Ward. You're next up, Kyle McCord and DJU. I mean, those are some of the guys, Dante Moore, and the list goes on and on. So still a lot of big decisions to be made, but this was one of the bigger ones and the bigger names from the outset.
So there's that with a heck of a pickup. I'm going to say this is not an old man, get off my lawn, but is this the way you like it? Is this the way we want it to be, almost like NFL free agency, but it's every day? NFL free agency has a window, don't they, Paul?
Yeah.
The transfer portal kind of does. It seems like they do, although a lot of names enter the portal even before it starts.
NFL free agency has structure, though. That's what, like, I'm not going to use the G word, but, like, there's not structure to this. There's not, when the Packers host a wide receiver on a free agent visit and then they sign him, it's 3 years, $28 million and 17 guaranteed or whatever.
Yep.
Like that's what this is lacking, and we'll probably eventually get there. I have no doubt in my mind we'll eventually get there because that's where things are headed. But yeah, that's what I don't like about it. And I'm like Craig, I also don't like, like Dylan Gabriel, good for you. Go cash in, do what you can. He's 5'11", 190, soaking wet, so he's not exactly a guy the NFL is going to break down the door for. But if you still have college eligibility and someone you can help win, go live it up in Oregon and help them, because Oklahoma wants to move on to Jackson Arnold, and that's fine. But it just feels weird that you're at 3 colleges.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly love it when I see like the Dylan Gabriel example. I do think it becomes a bit overkill at that point, and Paul pointed out why that is. I mean, he stands to make probably better money in college football and has much better chance to play actual football at the college level as compared to the pros. So, I understand that decision. I'm not going to bemoan guys for doing what they feel is best. I just think that it's just kind of lingering now where it's like I'd sort of love to get back to guys just play 5 years and they're gone, and you play 6 if you had an injury. But you know what? We're still 2 years away from that. The COVID year, you got to remember the freshmen that came in, so there's still a little bit of time. And when those guys are getting 6 years, you're still looking at 24, 25, and then getting all the way to 26. If the freshmen use their 6 years that they, in theory, have, then, you're still looking at a couple more seasons. I do like it. I do like that there is this transfer portal. I do think it's interesting. I do think there's absolutely benefits to it. But I think there's certain examples of it where you're kind of like, I don't know about Dylan Gabriel going to his third team to be a starter for year number 6 and things like that. But Riley Leonard just going off to Notre Dame to finish his career, I don't see much of a problem with that. And I don't think that players shouldn't have any freedom of movement. But I also do think that, to use the stupid term that we've used over to the guardrails. I mean, I've probably lost everybody who's just listening because they hear guardrails. They're like, boom, I'm out of here. I've already heard this conversation. But, you wish it was a little bit cleaner and just pro sports-like, because that's what it's basically trying to be in every way, shape, or form, except for actually, the things that come with being a pro sports league is, the contracts and the guarantees and the things of that nature. They don't want to do that, but they want to have every other part of it available. And so for some, that'll be great. For some, it's a little less desirable. I think I've seen a fair share. I think there's a lot of probably the older crowd and maybe some of the younger crowd that are like, you know what, this is just kind of silly. Like, I can't even root for a guy beyond a year. Like, I can't even get invested in this quarterback, especially if I'm not a Texas and Ohio State or Georgia. And even then you might not be able to get invested because they still leave, because they're not guaranteed to start the next year, Kyle McCord, or whatever the case may be. So I do think there's some fatigue there. I also think that for people chronically on social media or just obsessed with college football or that just love chaos, that this is right up your alley. And this is like constant news feed and, an injection of excitement. And so I see both sides of it. I probably fall somewhere in the middle. Surprise, surprise. But I think the Riley Leonard example is not a great example of like what's wrong with the portal. I think that's the way the portal's supposed to work.
And before anyone puts up that, it's America and freedom of, coaches get to leave, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying, and I wish there was a way to kind of like, it's every day you get,
you want simplification.
Yeah, and I don't mind the transfer portal, and I don't mind the NIL. I don't mind either one. It's kind of like it's almost hard to keep up with. There are sites that have now opened up like their NIL kings and queens and all that, and that's fine. But it's just kind of hard for me to wrap my head around it, and I'm trying to pay attention. Oklahoma